Hey everyone, welcome to our webinar, which is a special look at the ThingLink Scenario Builder. We're going to bring you all our tips and tricks for creating branching scenario-based learning through the next hour, and we would love you to ask your questions. Please do put anything in the chat, any ideas, where you are in the world, as we'd love to give you a shout out. As you can see, I'm not on my own. I'm delighted to be joined by the wonderful Dee. Hey Dee, welcome to the webinar.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining. I'm super excited about this topic. It's one that we've chatted about a lot and how powerful scenario-based learning can be. So really excited to talk about that and go a little bit deeper into utilizing ThingLink in order to build these experiences.
Brilliant. And we also have Ivan, who is in our backstage area. He's going to be tapping away, answering your technical questions about Scenario Builder. Ivan looks after our support service, our learning center, and is as a key and much loved member of the ThingLink team. And those of you who've been on our webinars before, you know that he is able to answer everything. He is amazing. So thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to everyone that's joined us from the US as well. I know we're still on this kind of like little bit of a time zone difference. So thank you for joining us. If you're watching on the catch up, you won't miss out anything because you're still going to get the chat. You're going to get the email afterwards that's got the link to these slides. And I've created top tip documents for you. The slides have got lots of links in. So you've got lots of things to help you get going with the Scenario Builder. So Scenario Builder has been around a while, but ThingLink, as you know, has evolved over the years. And we have this definition which sums it up so beautifully now. ThingLink helps you take the real world, real places, environments, situations and stories and bring them to life as immersive learning experiences. And the Scenario Builder really helps people to string all this together, doesn't it, Dee?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it does, because what we're seeing is, and across organizations and education institutes right now, is really a fundamental shift on how learning is evaluated. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But historically, we know that success was measured by essentially access, completion, content coverage, but those really don't tell you anything about performance. What organizations actually need to understand is, one, can people make the right decisions? Can they apply the knowledge from the learning? And can they perform in real life situations? So we are seeing a shift from completion to demonstrated competency, from static content to immersive adaptive learning that's contextual. And in more organizations, the gap isn't just knowledge, it's application. People know what to do, they just haven't practiced making decisions in that actual contextual environment quite yet.
That's a great definition. And of course, ThingLink has evolved now, and you've been part of the team that's seen Scenario Builder become such a powerful tool within the suite of tools here.
Oh, no, absolutely. And really what helps all of this come together is going to be the ThingLink, the full ThingLink solution overview, because in order to build actual scenarios that work, we need them to be contextual. So that's going to be a big piece about being able to use like the 360-degree imagery and being able to pull from those real world environments. And we do try to make it, and if anyone's already using us, as easy as possible. So that's where the panoramic to 360 comes into play. And then we go annotated in the multimedia editor, where we can then add those into the Scenario Builder, build those branching simulations. And of course, you build it once and you can deliver it anywhere, make it accessible, any language. So that includes XR, VR, AR as well. And that's really what sets ThingLink apart.
That's fantastic. So people don't have to worry about having a 360 camera. They can use their phones to take a pano to 360, take a panoramic image, upload that to ThingLink. It will turn it into a photosphere. So it's really not as complex as it used to be. It's been made a lot more accessible for everybody to create. So I put this slide together because I was thinking about how we frame scenario learning and the ThingLink Scenario Builder. So I came up with this to show everybody that there are 3 genius ways that you can use the ThingLink Scenario Builder. And together, I think they present probably one of the most pedagogically sound ways of delivering successful learning and development that's skills-based, competency-based. So if we start, we've got microlearning. So you can chunk up a complex process, a standard operating procedure, something like a policy that you might have at work. And the scenario builder enables you to chunk those up into learning paths by topic so you can explore it as a self-paced activity, jump back, it's palatable, it's bite-sized. So that's the first thing, and it acts as a real foundation for you to build on. The next stage is scenario-based learning, where you are building the branching scenarios where learners can choose what they would do in a situation or a context, see the consequences of those actions. But importantly, and this is something that you've said before, Dee, and that's the importance of failure-based learning. So people can actually see, what goes wrong when the proverbial hits a fan, and then they can reflect on it and then try a different outcome. And we all know that we learn through our mistakes, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think I've used this analogy before, but it really is just like a kid putting their hand on the stove, right? It's something so simple where you failed, hey, that hurt. I'm not going to do that again. And the same thing that happens, right? Just how children learn, that pedagogical learning style follows us into adulthood, but it becomes something a little bit different. Is I understand that, okay, if I go this path, and let's think about like a real world context, like construction, I could, fall off of a roof and break my back if I don't use my harness correctly. So these are the true consequences that you can learn from, but doing it in a safe environment helps build that confidence in those real life situations.
So we've gone from having a knowledge base, understanding a policy or a standard operating procedure, to then trying out our own theories, becoming our own scientists. And then the third one here is that actually where you can put people in the driving seat. And this is where you can create a simulation where people know there's a time challenge, there's a time pressure. What would that do? And it's almost like then becoming that kind of data-driven competency that you've got actual analytics for. And just as you said, employers want proof these days, don't they? They don't want something that could be spun up on ChatGPT or a certificate that's spun up on Canva. They actually want proof of competency.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you think about traditional learning experiences, right? And this is from a corporate level, me taking some of these courses, it's here's a video. Here are some questions. Me answering those questions doesn't show true competency. And that's where I'm saying the shift has come from completion to competency. Sure, if we're doing some type of compliance, check the box type training, that's going to be a little bit different. But then you might find even then, hey, you made this mistake out on the floor and, this costs the company money. So it's really that shift from completion to competency. And what we're seeing is, your traditional reporting doesn't always give that. And we'll talk a little bit deeper about this and how scenario-based learning can help with some of those pieces as well.
And I know that you've called this quote out before, but the University of Salford, they are, in my mind, true leaders in simulations and scenarios. And Dr. Leah Green has just been phenomenal in actually researching, what the kind of outcome is for participants in terms of real success.
Yeah, no, and this is obviously just a great quote too. Just traditional teaching, they don't encourage students to become active participants. And that's where, when you're talking about scenario-based learning and failure-based learning, you have to become an active participant because you have choices just like you will in everyday life. And I love that she talks about soft skill development, and we'll get into that in a second. But it really, we're presented with choices everyday life, and those consequences, that's what real work actually looks like. If you want people to perform in complex environments, you have to train them in complexity, not simplicity, just like it said here. And this is why we see stronger retention and behavioral change when we are doing true scenario-based learning, because learners are actively involved in the process, and they're building confidence throughout to perform in a real world environment.
I was thinking about how we might use the new AI conversation block. I'm giving a teaser now to people that I'm going to show them. And imagine if you at the end of a scenario and you've explored consequences, and then you enable the learner to reflect and say, what other consequences are there? Because there's always more consequences, isn't there? The ultimate is that it's existential to the company or to yourself. So yeah, there's a really nice way in which you can build on that with reflection as well.
Absolutely. Yes, this is a great example. Luis, do you want to share this example? I think what we want to talk about too is really just the basis of when you are creating these learning environments. Of course, engagement is important. So when you have, so you'll see this is going to be a soft skill type of training, but when you have, when you're building these environments, it's important to also understand how people learn, right? So you want to make it as accessible as possible, and being able to pull in a lot of this media and have, like we do, the immersive reader, deploy it in many different languages. This is also going to be powerful when you are building these scenarios, because they are going to be applicable to any of your learners. So it is really important to understand how people learn, and everything you build in ThingLink will be accessible, and you can train from soft skills to something a little bit more concrete.
Now, this is one of our favorite examples. It does get wheeled out quite a lot, but and I think you said it so beautifully on the webinar last week, and that was about immersion as a force multiplier. So if you think what we've just seen in that last example, and then something like this as an example embedded into that scenario learning environment, you're just reusing your assets in a really nice way.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, immersion is often misunderstood as just being about experience, but this is also pre-exposure to something, right? It allows organizations and educators, I know we had a vocational webinar last week. So it allows these educators to replicate environments that are high risk, high cost, not always accessible in person. And what you're doing is you're really increasing exposure to critical situations without increasing those real world risks. So this is going to be obviously valuable in many different areas, but this is where we allow them to practice and pre-practice, let's say, a process, but then we can reinforce this training with, again, the scenarios and the branching and the questions afterwards, to make sure that they are truly understanding why this process is important and what happens if you don't do it correctly. And that is really where immersion does become that force multiplier. Also, jumping into, again, this real world example where learners can explore different consequences. They always talk about failure-based learning. This is something that's really, there's studies around it, but it's not just about exploring, it's about understanding the consequences of your decisions. And this I always talk about high risk environments, but think about this in any situation. So even a soft skills environment, and I know we talked about that a little bit earlier, but what happens when you go to a barista and you don't get that best experience, or you have a problem? Hey, they made your coffee wrong, and you go back and there's like, oh, we don't care. You need to understand, as a barista, the consequences of those actions. You just lost a customer, probably for life. If it's me, it's a customer for life, or you're going to get that bad review. And it's really important to understand how that customer experience, how it really affects the business itself. So understanding the consequences of those actions, and again, practicing in a fail-safe environment will build the confidence for that not to happen in the real world.
Thanks, Dee. I think we've just done a really good whistle-stop tour of kind of the basis and foundation for starting to use the scenario builder. And I just wanted to give a nod to spatial learning, because what we've shown there is 3D objects, we've shown different environments, and people might have started hearing the term spatial learning. And I think it's taking that one step further, where you've got information, tools, and decisions anchored to locations within a space. And it's enabling people to understand not what to do, but where and when to do it as well. And I think that that is just another step on the journey of starting to look at how we create scenario-based learning experiences. So you might have seen this one before as well, but I think it's really helpful to go back to the 5 C's of successful scenario building. So of course we start with our context, then we start with a challenge within that context as well, and then thinking about a number of choices that is going to put our learners under pressure with. What would you do in that situation? And then seeing the consequences of those choices. And we can't forget the most important bit here, which is that opportunity to contemplate as well. So when we look at that in the kind of way that we build scenario-based learning experiences, it's almost like a rinse and repeat. And you could do this ever ending. And of course, you know, you might only have a sort of like 3 consequences or 3 choices, but sometimes, you know, one choice isn't right and one choice isn't wrong. It's just one that's less wrong than another, if it's a kind of ethical decision making kind of problem. So it's really helpful to keep this in mind when you start to create. And the next thing that I want to show you, and Ivan's in the chat, and I did see a wonderful comment from Amanda Pickard. Ivan is a superhero. And when you get to this slide and you click on that image, it will take you to the ThingLink Scenario Builder complete walkthrough, and we've put all the videos in the slides as well, so you can watch those as well when you need to. Okay, so we've given you the foundation. Let's start having a look at some of the building blocks. What we've also put together for you is our top tips for using the ThingLink Scenario Builder. And this is a Google Doc, which I linked to the email that you're going to get, with all the tips and tricks that Dee and I think are going to really, really help you along the way. And you'll see they're designed with the 5 C's in mind. So let's have a look then at some of the building blocks. And my first tip is that even if you are going to start using some of the tools within the scenario builder, I'm going to click create scenario here, and I'm just going to put this as barista training and create. You can see that I get these options. I can create a blank scenario, and that's build your scenario step by step. You can create with AI as well, and you can also upload content here as well, so you convert your existing materials. Now, this could be a PowerPoint that you download as a PDF. You can also select your target language for your learners as well, which is really, really helpful. You can ask it what, you can suggest what AI tool you want to use. However, when starting using the ThingLink Scenario Builder for the very first time, I really would urge you to create a blank scenario from scratch, because it just helps you to become familiar with the different blocks. The other tip that I've put in my Google Doc, which you'll get hold of, is that it's really helpful that in your multimedia editor, create a folder that's got all of the assets in one folder that you want to use to create your scenario, because then they're all in one place. And the other tip here as well is that you can click on all the content and just make sure that you've got your privacy settings there as well. There is a sync tool that's built into the scenario builder, but it really does help to have things all in one folder to start going. So going back to my scenario, here we've got our barista training, and I'm going to create a blank scenario from scratch. And let's just have a little bit of familiarization with the Scenario Builder interface. Some of the icons you'll know and love from the multimedia editor. So at the top here, you can preview your scenario on different devices. I'm just going to go into one that I've already created so that you can see what it looks like from behind the scenes. Preview on devices. So here we have my barista scenario, what it looks like on a phone in horizontal, tablet, laptop, or even on a big screen. Other settings here, we can manage access. Now, this is really, really helpful because did you know, Dee, that you can collaborate with your colleagues on your scenarios as well? So here, I'm the owner of this, but I can also add other people that can be editors or administrators of my scenario as well. So my other great tip there is if you're in a team and you're working together, why not start together on a trial scenario where you can both edit and then you can both buddy up and support each other with it as well. We've also got our scenario settings. We're going to come back and have a look at that in a second, but we're going to go through all of these settings. There we've got the 3 dots, the ellipses, and here you can rename your scenario, look at the statistics. You can clone your scenario as well, and it's helpful to remember that it doesn't clone new assets of everything that's in that folder that I just showed you. What it will do is clone the structure, and those assets will be in there. You can translate. You can now replace the thumbnail, which is super handy for when you're sharing as well, and you can delete there. I also just give a shout out here that you can see the normal view, which is super helpful, but you can also see a micro view. And here it is looking a little bit like spaghetti because it's quite a big one. I'll just pop that back to normal view. There's also a tool here, which I think Ivan will have to remind me of what we called this. I think it was just a harmonization button, but it does actually put things in a nice, neat way, because sometimes when you're dragging things around, it can get a little bit messy. And here you can search for your node title as well. And that's a new feature, which is super helpful. So how are we doing? Any questions coming through? Auto align. Thank you, Ivan. That's the name for it, auto align. I think I called it snap to at some point, which I'm sure relates to something else. Anyway, so let's go and have a look at some of the blocks now that you'll get to see. Harmonization. There you go, Amanda. Yes, harmonization. So I'm going to go back into my scenarios now, and I've got my barista training. And the first thing that I'm going to do is add a new block. Now you get this new block, and there's another block here, which is called conversational in AI. This is where you don't need to go and get a third-party chatbot product. If you want a chatbot that's in your scenario, you can actually create one with us. So the first thing that I'm going to show you is that I'm going to click on the media button. And this is phenomenal. It's so versatile. So first of all, you can give your, I'll put starting scene. You can embed code there as well. So you could use a URL. It could be a YouTube. It could be a Google map. All the things that you can embed other places from other places. So now you can just put that embed code in there, or you can upload or select a scene. Now, this is where the folder comes in handy, because I know that I have got everything in a folder ready to go. And I've got my scenario here, and I've got my starting scene. So no, that's not the right one. Let me delete that. So my new block, my media, upload or select a scene, and it is this one. Here is my starting scene, and now I can just link those two together, and I've got my first block. That's a ThingLink that I've already created, which is in that folder. What I'm just going to show you now is that a top tip that I have, and that is I build a deck to go with my scenario. And that way it's branded, it looks professional. People always say to me, how do you get it to look so slick? And it's not really rocket science. And I don't consider myself to be that creative. I just create a nice deck and then I download these as PNG files, upload those into ThingLink, and then I can put my little hotspots in there. And it just keeps it really consistent. So all of these essentially is just a deck that I've created in Canva. So that's my other top tip. So going back into my scenario builder here, now you can see I've got further options, and this is super helpful. I can edit, and it will actually edit the thing that I've just put in there. So you can see I can change that now. I can also edit the scene. So I don't need to go back to ThingLink, the multimedia editor. I can edit that directly in there. I can set a timer if I want to add that little bit of time pressure to that particular block. So it's going to give people that realistic kind of got to make a decision really, really quickly. You can also add a label here, and it's quite nice to label your lines. You can add scores, you can preview it from here, you can duplicate it, or you can delete the block. So there we have our first scenario builder, the first front door. And that's actually one of my tips. So I'm just going to go back to my deck that I put together, because one of the tips that I've got for you is that I would always think about creating a starting scene. And I think this is like your virtual tour front door that we've talked about. And I thought it'd be really, really helpful if I gave people this template. So if you click on the link that's on this slide when you get it, it will take you to a template that I've created with a number of these starting scenes so that you can create these and add your own hotspots in. But isn't that a lovely way to welcome your learners? You're setting your stall out, you're setting your scene, you're making it be a comfortable experience from the outset, putting in guidance, putting in an introduction. You could have a little video of yourself saying, welcome to your scenario. What better way to build a connection with your learners? So that's my first, my next big tip for you that I would have when I start to build. So now you can see I'm going to add another new block. And for this one, I'm actually going to add another media block, which is going to be my challenge. So now we have the rush is on. What's going to happen? So now if I show you this one, I'm going to go into edit the scene. Here you can see I've got my barista cafe and the rush is on. It's getting busy. You're under pressure, everything's going like clockwork, but oh no, what happens when you think everything's going smoothly? Well, this is where we can start to add in a different type of block. This is where we can add in our challenge. We've set the context, we've got our challenge brewing. So now our challenge is going to be a simple branch. And it's going to be, what would you do? Because the espresso machine is breaking down. So we can have B1, and that is to do nothing. We can have another branch, which is going to be tell everyone to go home. Or our third one, which is going to be try and fix the machine ourselves. Try and fix the machine. There we go. So you can see now I've got what would you do? Do nothing, tell everyone. And these different branches are going to take you to a consequence. So now you can see I've got my branching block. To connect it, I just simply add those together. And now you can see that I can build these blocks around it depending on what we want them to do next. So I'm going to add another block now. So I've got already in my folder, I've got the next blocks that I want to add on. So the first thing I've got to add is that I've got service resumes. So I could say, nicely done. You tried to fix the machine. It was just a quick fix there. Now someone's knocking at my window because they've seen that I'm here. I will ignore that. I can add my next lot of media, which is not the best ending. So that's the next one that I would add in there. And I can also add my next block in, which is another media block that I've got right, which is not quite the right approach, which is to do nothing. So now you can see I've got my context, my challenge, and I've got my choices there. So that's the kind of basics that we have got for when you start to build your scenario. But I already had this planned out. And of course, that can be quite tricky starting from scratch. So my suggestion here is that you'll see on the right-hand side that there is also a ThingLink Copilot. So you don't need to have to go off to ChatGPT or to go to Claude or another kind of tool. But here in your Copilot, you can actually ask the question, I want to create a branching scenario on a broken coffee machine. Please suggest the challenge and outcomes. So once you put that in, and in that way, it will come up with a structure for you, which enables you to then build on your scenario. So here we've got our range of variations. We've got our possible branching outcomes. So if you're going to start using the ThingLink Scenario Builder completely from scratch, this is the way that I would do it to get myself on the right page. Dee, I can see you nodding. Anything you want to add in there?
No, absolutely. And I think one of the biggest pieces is important, I always tell everyone, is that the story and telling that is so important. So having at least a basis of what do I do and how do I start this is so important. I think Louise set it up perfectly. I also want to point out two things that for everyone to notice. Everything Louise is doing is drag and drop. So it's really easy at any point in time to replace blocks, add more things to them. I tend to always have like a side block on the side. Do I want to use this or below? And you can move all of those pieces around. And the other thing is when it comes to those branching questions, notice how there's 3. That is going to be at least 3 is always recommended. A great answer, a hey, not quite right, but you still have the opportunity to fix this. And then a absolutely, let's not do that. Let's not send everybody home because there's a fix to this. So there's always going to be those 3, at least 3 ideas that you want, because you want to also give the opportunity to your learners to correct their mistakes. And that's why the not quite right is always great to have in there.
Brilliant. Thanks, Dee. So the next thing that I wanted to show people is I'm going to jump around to another scenario because I want to show people another block that's coming soon as well. So this scenario is all about cultivating positive interactions. And in this scenario, I can click the share button now and click the link. You can create a QR code for that if you wanted to as well. And I'm just going to paste this in because this is a brand new feature. So with this scenario, I've got cultivating positive interactions. And I want you to imagine that you're a receptionist and you're going through receptionist training for scheduling patient appointments. Notice my front door. I've actually used Canva, but I've put a little video in it and downloaded it as a GIF just to give it a little bit of energy. I've got my welcome to your first activity there. I've got a little bit about the practice policy. I thought that would be helpful to share with people and what you're building. So if I click forward now, you can choose your patient interaction. And this is the branching block. And you can choose to practice with a calm patient, an angry patient, or a manipulative patient. So let's have a go with the angry patient. So here's a little bit of information. I'm setting up my context about what's going to happen. And I've also got some information about managing policies and procedures for vexatious complainants. And this is the new conversational AI block. So with the conversational AI, I've just set it up so it acts as the frustrated patient. You're on the phone at the medical center, and this will have text-to-speech and speech input soon, but you're able to respond to the frustrated patient who says, I've been on hold for 10 minutes listening to that dreadful music. I want to see a doctor today, and I won't hear any excuses. So how do you respond to this caller? So I'm going to say, hello, sir. And they say, hello, sir, is that all you've got to say to me? So it's repeating this conversation. So now within your scenarios, I'm trying to build a picture for you, because in the branching scenario for the barista, it didn't have this kind of come to life for it. So imagine now you can actually have a real-time conversation with that barista who's struggling. It's so easy to build within the new scenario builder. Once you've gone on to have your conversation, I've got my reflections and success. And now here's the all-important contemplation bit, because we've got a different mode within the conversational AI, which is all about tutor mode and guided reflection. And in this one, I've set it up so it asks me my name, what I want to be called, and then it's going to run through a series of reflective questions which help me to reflect on that experience, which I just think is great, Dee. I mean, it's just adding so much more value to that experience.
Oh, no, absolutely. And, I always talk about psychology when it comes to these things, but, and I don't know if anyone was on the last webinar, but this is really powerful, is metacognition. Let me reflect. Let me see, did I make the right decisions? And understanding just on your own accord what you could have done differently. This goes back to building in learning, building confidence and showing true competency. So that is another way of doing this. And I saw this comment come in here. I don't know if you saw it at the bottom here, but yeah, no, this is a very powerful way to add extra context to the learning environment and let your learn another way for you to practice as well.
And Ivan's just reminded us that it's still in closed beta, but if you want to give it a try, then you can always get in touch with us. Brilliant. Let's move on to the next block as we go through our different blocks. So I'm going to click on the new block again. So we've had a look at the media block. We've had a little look at the branching block. We've had a look at the conversational AI. Let's have a look at the new text block. And I saw that Saif was in the chat as well. And Saif is one of our team that has been responsible for this. So with the text block, before you could just put in text, but now you can do so much more with it. So this scenario, I'm going to click on the share button and click the share link, and then copy that into a new tab and go here. So this scenario is a bit of a kind of, what would you do if you were someone in the story? And I've created this a bit more for sort of learning about literature. So I've made a 360 background, and I've done this in ThingLink with the 360 AI image generator. If I click the forward now, you can see I've got some text and an image. But what's really lovely is that you're able now to produce an audio narration.
Welcome back. Today we are joined by an employee from the Ministry of Truth. Can you tell us a bit about your daily responsibilities?
Of course. My work involves...
So if you've ever used Notebook LM and you've got the deep dive podcast, it's a bit like that. So I'm going to show you how you can create it in your scenarios. So I'm going to go back to my scenario, and here you can see I've added a text block. So in your text block, you can add in text, and you can add in media there as well. There's helpful markup. And what you're able to do is, I'm just going to click that out and start that again from scratch, but we can generate narration. Now, what's great about the narration tool here is that it'll take your text that you've added in there. If you want a single speaker, the single speaker will speak that verbatim. So it'll just follow what you've written. And I've got you work at the Ministry of Truth, altering past records to fit the party's current narrative. I know this is a bit more of a story-based example, but it could be anything that you want it to be. So a single speaker is text-to-speech, and you can choose the voice that you want it to have as well, the style. But now you can choose multiple speakers. You can choose the different type of voices that you want, and you can format your text here to be suitable for multiple speakers. So now we've got speaker 1, speaker 2. You could even cut and paste that out and use it as captions. And now I can click generate, and this is going to generate that audio narration that's going to again bring this to life for that particular scenario. It works beautifully. So hopefully you can see now that this isn't just about having blocks that link your ThingLink scenes together. It's become such a powerful tool. And then
Welcome back to our program. Today we have a guest who works at the very heart of our information system, the Ministry of Truth.
How cool is that? So then I can just click the save button, and that will save that into my scenario, and I'll click save again, and it's ready there for my learners to have that audio. So we've got conversational AI, we've got branching blocks. If I click the new block again, I'm just going to show you quickly that we've also got a question block here as well. So you can add multiple choice questions in, and that acts like a gate way that people have got to get that right in order to proceed. So again, you're going to have really nice information that people have actually answered that question correctly in order to proceed. So Dee, anything there that you think I've missed that you want to just call out?
Well, I do want to mention we're going to have more questions coming in the scenario builder. So something to look forward to, question types. So when you click that, we'll have a few different options for you there. And also with the new narration piece, it's a really, really great way to set the scene. So when we're talking about scenario-based learning, that's your perfect opportunity to set the scene. This is what's going on, and you don't need to, major filming. You don't need to film something in order for you to be able to create the story that you're looking to create.
And we've had a question from Amanda. There are different accents. I don't think we've got the voices of Robert the Bruce just yet, but watch this space. There might be other voices coming. But just to add to that as well, that, you don't need to feel alone when you're adding in your building blocks. There are AI tools there if you want to generate questions, suggest branches, and write a recap. So remember that you've got AI tools to help you create it, from your PDF, which is phenomenal. Create branching scenarios and microlearning experiences from your existing materials. And then if you want to, you can play with those and move them about and add in your own building blocks as you see fit. So I'm just going to move on now, because I know there's so much to get through, and time is to go through some of the advanced settings in your scenario as well, because these are going to help you to think about the ways that you present it. So I'm just going to go back into my scenario builder, and I'm going to go back into my original one, which is about the espresso machine meltdown. If you click on the settings or the gear cog here, you'll see that there's some really helpful things that have been added. You can show a back button so people can go back if they need to as well. Here you can add your points so that learners can see how many points they've achieved. You can enable this to show a language selector so that your viewers can choose the language that you want. I'm going to come back to advanced tracking and enable a XAPI in a second. Proceed automatically after the video ends. That's really helpful. if you don't have an instruction of what to do next, when you've got a video that's embedded in there, then it will do that for you automatically. And you can show the accessibility button. Super important if you want to make sure that people can open that particular scene into the accessibility player. And then what that means is that people can then use screen readers and other accessibility features with it as well. Other points within the scenario advanced settings here, you can have a timer for the whole thing. So I showed you a timer on that particular block. You can also set a timer for the whole thing as well. And also at the end of your scenario, you can have click to restart the scenario. You can also have a little message for people as well. I've got maybe have another go, try a different outcome. But you can also show the results of what's happened for that learner as well during that particular experience. So that's the settings that we've got on. Before we start looking at the final share, do you want to start to tell people a bit about the analytics? Would that be helpful, Dee?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't necessarily know if all are shown on the screen as well too, because we have the ability to also set what you would like as your completion criteria. And I'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide. But right here, what I want to chat about is that what's important with a lot of our analytics is that we play nice in the sandbox, right? So if you are, let's say, delivering your learning through Canvas, we can integrate via LTI. If it's more of a corporate platform like 360 Learning, it's XAPI. So we are able to transfer all the data and analytics into the tools that you're already using. So that you can analyze them all in one place as well, or into a learning record store. If you have something externally that you dump all of your analytics into, you can dive a lot deeper. What's nice about our scenario builder analytics is that when we talk, and it's not just about completion, you can really analyze decision-making patterns, drop-off points from your learners. So when we talk about failure-based learning, right, we do want people to fail because we know they're learning from that failure. But as educators, this gives you the opportunity to also understand where were there areas of drop-off. Is this somewhere where I can reinforce that learning? Can I, should we do a follow-up session? Maybe I can build a course to reinforce this area, because I saw that a lot of learners were getting stuck here, and I see there are some areas of confusion. So you're not just delivering learning, you're really delivering insights into, I want to say knowledge gaps, but since we're talking about performance, into maybe capability gaps. Maybe this is something where we can reinforce. And I think this is a great illustration of it all. Being able to dive into what path did our learners take. We can look at it as at a macro level and see, most people took this path. Maybe this is more of maybe we need to reinforce this learning everywhere. Or maybe it's just a few people who we saw that the path taken. Again, it's just a great way to reinforce. We want them to fail, but we also need to understand where those failures are happening so that we can correct them as well.
Absolutely. That's a really helpful overview. So when we go back to, that original slide with the 3 different genius ways of using ThingLink, we talked about, the kind of knowledge base, which we saw in, the earlier one. And then, of course, you've got your trial, different things like the barista one. But that actually will tell you, what were the popular paths that people took, as well as individual stats. And then you've got that real simulation. So imagine if I recreated that barista one and said, right, this is the actual simulation. You're in the driving seat. You've got 10 minutes in order to make the right decision here before all your customers are going to leave the cafeteria. And, that's where you've got your absolute evidence that people have completed the training, and, of course, that you've got their competencies as well, which I think is just absolutely brilliant. So shall we have a look at sharing now? Because we've had a look at building, we've come up with ideas for helping you to create your branching scenarios. But now's the time to think about, how are you going to share this with everybody? And I think it's important to think, we've got complete versatility here. So people can have an individual experience, and that might be within a VR headset. It might be on a mobile device. It might be on their laptop. Not everyone has access to a laptop at work, but it also might be a shared experience if you wanted to have a classroom or a meeting room experience for a team building activity. Can you imagine us in a team building activity trying to negotiate a branching scenario and everyone's saying, no, don't do that, do it this way, and then having a reflection and thinking, what other consequences could you have come up with? And then, of course, it's going to work in immersive spaces as well, where you can see other people's reactions to things, which I think is hugely powerful. But the way in which we would advocate sharing your scenarios is to use the ThingLink landing pages. So if you have got access to your ThingLink account, and I'm just going to go back into mine and show you from scratch. Here I have got a landing page setting, and this is where you can have your own landing page, and you can actually build your playlists so that you can actually set things up exactly how you want them to be. You could also have a brand kit within your landing page as well. So it shows you your color for your bottom of your scenarios as well. You saw the green one there on some of mine. So your brand kit can make it look consistent, not only with the slides like I showed you with Canva, using those, you can actually make it look beautiful. And then on your landing page, let me just go back to that now, the little landing page settings here, you can see that you can give it a custom URL as well. Have a title and a hero image, and I've actually put in the slides. I'm just going to click on this one here. If you click on the link here, it takes you to a lovely example where you can explore the landing page. And my last little tip as we bring this to a close is that when you do want to start sharing your scenarios, I'm just going to come out of this one here now. It's really helpful when you click the share button just to have that last tip. You can synchronize your privacy settings so that everything's set to how you want it to be, as I showed you from the outset. Have it in the folder, but you can synchronize there as well. You can embed your scenario onto your website. You've demonstrated, Dee, you can put it in your LMS as well. You can share it via link. You can view it in VR. There's also the accessibility view there too. So when you want to add it to a landing page, and I'm just going to go back to my landing page settings here, I can actually create a playlist, and here I can add a scene. So I can add individual thing links. I can also add a scenario. And then if you want to use your scenarios with your MetaQuest headsets, this all links together absolutely beautifully. So I know that we're coming up to the end of our time, Dee. We've given people a lovely walkthrough of being able to create, use AI, use the Copilot, some tips and tricks there as well. But it doesn't just stop there, because Dee, I know that you're really excited to share with people the amazing white paper.
Yeah, absolutely. This is available to download directly through our website. And I do highly recommend it. And I'm also happy to chat with anyone, but it really dives into a lot of case studies from a lot of our vocational education customers, where they'll discuss some real world examples on how you can utilize immersive learning for vocational training and those different applications where they've seen success and being able to deliver this. So please download it. It's great. It's an asset on our website. And if you can't find it, please feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to send it over as well.
Great. And if people want to schedule a demo with you, they can do that on this particular slide as well. They'll be able to go to the QR code, and your email details will be on the email that goes out to everybody as well. So if you know somebody who doesn't use ThingLink Scenario Builder, send them your YouTube that you'll get on your email and Dee's contacts, and she'd be very happy to speak to people. And yeah, we're really happy if people want to share the YouTube to this webinar as well. What's really lovely, and I should have mentioned this earlier on, is, you know, the quote from the University of Stanford that was on the earlier slide?
Yes.
The University of Stanford are recruiting for a learning technologist, and they've put knowledge of ThingLink as one of the professional requirements actually on the job description, which I think is brilliant, that, you know, it's now an industry recognized qualification that being able to use ThingLink and ThingLink Scenario Builder is going to deliver really powerful, impactful learning experiences. And we do have our own certified trainer program that we would love you to be part of. I know that I've seen some of our beloved ThingLink certified trainers on the webinar in the chat today. But if you'd like to become certified and connected to a global community of immersive learning leaders, then all you need to do is to go to our page, and we would happily invite you to be part of our community of ThingLink certified trainers. It's low stakes, there's no exams, there's no fee, it's completely free. We would just like you to come and share your knowledge and expertise with our community, because that's how you make our products better as well, through your feedback. So all of our tools have been built, developed, and continue to get better and better with your feedback. So I'm just going to take that off now and say, Dee, is there any parting thoughts, anything that I particularly missed, any questions anyone's got to add there?
Yeah, feel free to add any questions to the chat. But no, I think I'm very passionate about scenario-based learning. I don't know if anyone has noticed this from the beginning, or if you've been on another one of our webinars. So I'm more than happy to discuss best practices to creating these, because really the story is so important, and the storytelling aspect of it all, because that's really where we're going to get the most power. So if anyone has any ideas and you want to send them over to me, I'm also happy to build it live with you. So just wanted to offer that up.
That's brilliant, Dee. So all I've got left to say is a thank you to Ivan for being in our chat and our magnificent support as always. Thank you, Dee, for all your enthusiasm and everything you bring to our webinars. And thank you to everyone that's watching. We really appreciate your valuable time being spent on our webinar. And thank you for asking all your questions. So all that's left to say is have a wonderful rest of your day. It's been amazingly warm and sunny here in Scotland. I hope that the spring is springing wherever you are, and you're all well and you've enjoyed this webinar. So take care, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.